Hey everyone, it's Febe and welcome back to my channel. Today we're going to talk about something new and exciting and something that I think a lot of people in the Guildwars2 community really want in the next expansion. The possibility of a new playable race. Now, I can't take credit for the idea of this video or even half the script really, because the outline for this idea comes from a guildmate of mine named Persona. Persona is a very creative person, and the fact that she thought all this out in great detail just amazes me. But on top of that, I really dig her ideas and wanted to showcase them to help her spread them around with greater ease. First of all, let's break down what this video is not. This is not a video that assumes that just because it claims to solve one of the major issues involved with bringing in a new race, that it guarantees that ArenaNet will do so. ANET will do what ANET wants to do, and neither Persona nor I have any sway over what the devs decide to do with their game. Though admittedly, that would be really cool. This is not about begging ANET to add another race. It is about finding ways to make it more feasible. This is not about guessing which race would get added or pushing for any particular race. This potential solution is very generalized, meant to fit anyone, but especially a race that is largely unknown to us, like the Tengu, Largos, or any other race that doesn't have cities that we can visit. This presumes that a new race is more likely to come to us in an expansion, which means they can and probably will come from a new part of the world that we haven't seen yet. This video will not be going into all of the assets that will have to be added or modified in order to get a new playable race in the game, because let's be real, while I don't know or understand how to code an entire video game, it's probably a ton of work. And if we're being honest, it's probably the biggest reason why a new race would not get added to the game. Still, that doesn't stop us from hoping. This video is not going to be straightforward and short, even with me trying to make it as concise as possible. If you don't want to listen to a lot of details or explanations or suggestions, then it's probably better if you invest your time in watching some of my other content, conveniently linked down in the description box below. Though honestly, this whole idea hypes me up, so if you do stick around, I'm pretty sure you won't be disappointed. Like a lot of people that I've spoken to in the Guildwars2 community, I've thought for some time how cool it would be to get a new playable race for the game. I mean, as a role player, it would be so much fun to get to RP as a Largos or a Tengu. And honestly, in almost every RP guild that I've ever been in, we've all thought about what kind of Tengu or Largos characters we would make if we ever got that coveted playable race edition. Let me know down in the comments if you're Team Tengu or Team Largos, or if you're vying for a different playable race altogether. As amazing as a new playable race would be for us as players, there are obstacles to adding a new race. The two which stand out the most would probably be the large amount of assets that would need to be added or modified, and the issue of where in the storyline to add in a new race. This video focuses on the latter issue, with nods toward the former. In considering this problem, let's look at a list of goals and priorities in order to come up with an ideal solution. Solutions should prioritize reusing old content versus creating new content, because the less content that needs to be changed or added to, the cheaper it gets to add the new race, and then the more likely it is to happen. Solutions should attempt to break immersion as little as possible. I'm going to assume here that everyone, including ANET, cares about maintaining some semblance of immersion necessary for telling any story. A new race, city, and starting zones appearing out of nowhere is bound to feel awkward to players who pay attention to the story, especially if they're opened up to all players versus being locked behind expansion content. Some players, myself included, would prefer to be able to play the entire story with the new commander, from defeating Canthan all the way to the present content. But I would also prefer getting a new race over not getting a new race, so I'm willing to accept not being able to play from the beginning. Let me know down in the comments below where you stand on this as an individual of the Guildwars2 community. If we focus on the question of where and how to incorporate the new commander, we can use the other goals and priorities to guide our ideas and how we think about it all in a creative, fun, and logical way. Now, Where to put the new commander into the story is an interesting problem. The cheapest solution would be to stick the new commander into the plot at the point in which the new race gets patched in. But how would this work? Well, here's 3 potential options. 1. Either the new commander is an entirely new character. 2. The new commander is actually the old commander, made to look like the new race through reincarnation, shape-shifting, or some other voodoo witchcraft magic, because, hey, the magic in Tyria is just all kinds of messed up right now. Or 3, we just slot the new commander into the player character position and hand wave away their sudden appearance. Though we've never played with this character in any of the story leading up to now, if they're called the commander, they must be the commander. You probably guessed by the tone of my voice and level of sarcasm that I don't find any of these solutions to be ideal. They all break immersion. Why would the old commander pass on their title to a perfect stranger when we already have a cast of capable friends at our side, most of whom would be better suited to carry on our mission? And painting a veneer over old commander to turn them into new commander feels like a cheat. When we say we want a new race, I think that means having a character who isn't just one of the other races masquerading as a member of the new race. The third option is obviously the worst offender. It doesn't even pretend to explain how the new commander fits into the story. So, let's say we go for broke and stick new commander in from the start of the storyline. Let's consider what each race has to have. A racial city, a unique tutorial, personal story unique to their race for levels 10, 20, and 30, a mentor of the same race who is a member of Destiny's Edge, a starting zone and or areas for levels 10, 20, and 30 story to take place, members of that race who belong to the 3 orders, dialogue lightly peppered throughout other parts of the story that refers to the player's race. Adding a new race from the beginning means we would need all of these things, with the possible exception of racial members who belong to the 3 orders. Adding one at any other point in the story might mean some or all of these aren't necessary. You could technically start new commander at level 80. To get over the lack of a tutorial, ANET could just simply require players to have had another character at 80 before the new race unlocks. This is similar to how we got a level 80 boost when we purchased Heart of Thorns, which brought us the new Revenant class. So, right off the bat, some of these are harder to add than others. How do we handle a racial mentor who's a member of Destiny's Edge? Are we going to make up a new character for Destiny's Edge and act like they were always part of the story? Or do we reuse one of the current members somehow? If we add in a racial city and new low-level zones, are these new areas going to be open for everyone? Because if we're saying these areas are available to everyone immediately from the start of the story onward, it leaves a lot of questions to be answered. Where were the members of this new race when the pact was being formed? Why didn't they take part or barely take part in any of the story up until now? With races like the Quaggan and Skrit, keep in mind that we had to convince them at level 50 to help our chosen order. Why would we be playing as one sooner? On the other hand, we can lock the new racial areas out to people who don't own the expansion that the new race is introduced with, also similar to how you had to have Heart of Thorns in order to play as a Revenant. We can say it's just individuals who take part in joining the orders, forming the pact, killing Zaitan, and so on to present day and beyond, and this can work. For example, take the xenophobic Tengu. We can give them a racial city that doesn't technically open up to everyone until the point in the story where they're patched in as a playable race. Give them their own tutorial, starting zone, and level 15 to 30 zones similarly unavailable to other races, and give individual Tengu their own story in those locations up until level 30, where they're somehow convinced to join an order. We can maybe insert one of those existing mentors to guide them instead of sticking in a new character to avoid breaking immersion. This is all well and good, but remember the list of priorities. Adding in a new city, new zones, new story content, that's going to take a lot of time and resources, and the more time and resources it takes to add a race, the less likely it is to happen. I mean, isn't that the argument we always hear from people when they say that ANET would never give us a new playable race? It's just too much work. So here's where Persona had an interesting thought. What if we followed the individual angle, but instead of making the new commander a part of their race's community from the start of the story, we make them an extant member? In other words, new commander doesn't know their own people any better than the rest of the races of Tyria do. They may have been orphaned, abandoned, kidnapped, thrown upon the shores of Tyria, with little to no knowledge of where they came from or who their family is. This means we could adopt them out to one of the existing races, which in turn means we can reuse already existing tutorials and starting zones. Better yet, we don't have to make the racial city available until that point in the story where the new race was patched in, where everyone, new commander included, gets to meet their people for the first time. With this in mind, let's lay out this solution to the problem of cheaply adding a new playable race to the game. From character creation, new commander gets to make two choices that affect the tutorial and the level 10 through 30 story. Which of the old races adopted you, and how you originally came to be in Tyria. Because of the tutorial, which we will be reusing from the race that adopted the new commander, we can pick from the following possibilities: the Norn, the humans, the Azura, and the Sylvari. I cannot see the Char adopting a member of another race and allowing them to join one of their war bands, so they're out. Sorry, Char. I couldn't think of any in-game examples of a Sylvari adopting children outside of their society, but I could totally see a member of this enthusiastic young race wanting to try their hand at parenthood if they found an orphan child. Hey everyone, editing Feyre here, and I just wanted to pop in real quick and say that I actually did find an example of a Sylvari that adopted, and you can just like, oh, why are all these kids here? And they're in her care. Sylvari cannot procreate as other races do, but I have always wanted tiny children, and these youths needed a parental figure, so I've taken them in. Where are their parents? All these children have lost their parents. Some died, some disappeared, but the children are safe here, and the nearby wolf shaman helps us with food. He calls them his little wolf pack. And I just thought this was so adorable. I personally think the Sylvari are less likely because it will be harder to work a non-Sylvari into the dream, which is where the Sylvari tutorial takes place. But it's not impossible. We've gotten several examples of the commander being brought into the dream at later points in the story. The pale tree showing the commander and Traherne the vision and ore, and Traherne bringing the commander into the dream to fight Mordramoth at the end of Heart of Thorns. The writers would have to find an NPC who would connect the new commander into the dream for the tutorial, whether it be the pale tree, a firstborn, maybe even Kaith. While it would be great to have this explained during the tutorial, adding some simple dialogue boxes with the NPCs at the end of the tutorial describing how you got in there would suffice. Norn, Azura, and humans are all easier and acceptable tutorial options. While it would be nice to get some dialogue reflecting the fact that the new commander is of a different race, it's not absolutely necessary, allowing us to reuse the tutorial in its entirety. We know there are Norn who have adopted members of other races, as seen in one of the homesteads in Dredgehaunt Cliffs. Norn are an individualistic society, all about making a legend for themselves, so if the new commander was raised within the Norn traditions, I could see them being allowed to prove themselves and join in the slaying of Isomir. The humans of the Tyrian continent have built a fairly pluralistic society, and if nothing else, they have the circus and the adopted by nobles option already in place. The point is, I could see Tyrian humans taking in a member of a strange race that had nowhere to go, and defending Shaemore would be defending a part of new commander's home. For the Azura, we know they adopt other races as well because of the little family that runs around Lion's Arch, an Azura who adopted a char cub and a human child. We know that Scarlet was allowed to attend their colleges and also treated like a lab rat, so choosing the Azura could go in either of those directions. The highly intelligent new commander might be treated as well as an Azura, allowed to go to college and join a crew, or set out to prove themselves just as much of a genius through inventions, research, and stopping a malfunctioning golem, not theirs, in the jungle. The adoptive race you pick affects your level 10 story. The level 10 story theme is generally about the commander interacting with and having a positive effect on their community. This step in the story could borrow heavily from already existing level 10 stories from the adoptive races, or it could be its own new story, though the former would be the easiest and cheapest route to go, more than likely. Level 20 story is always of a personal nature to the commander, and that is no exception for the new commander. How new commander came to be in Tyria will be the subject of this story step, and is determined by the second choice you make in character creation. While the tutorial, level 10, and level 30 stories can be reused in whole or part from existing Norn, Human, Sylvari, or Asura story steps, this story step has to be unique and entirely new. It can reuse old locations, but if the story is taking place in existing zones anyway, it's not really much of a big deal. Because this is going to be a big part of adding in a new race, as if the whole task wasn't already a big undertaking, let's look at some possibilities for the level 20 story. 1. New commander's parents were exiled from their people. They tried to make a better life in Tyria, but for whatever reason they passed away, leaving new commander an orphan in a strange land. Why did they leave? Maybe their love was forbidden. Maybe one of them was a criminal or wrongly accused of a crime. Maybe they were a ritual scapegoat and forced to leave or be killed. Some of these same ideas can apply to new commander rather than the parents. Ritual scapegoat still works, or being the bastard child to a noble family that has to be discarded, or prophesized child that can't be allowed to live. Why were the parents killed? Someone from their past may have caught up with them. They might have been merchants, robbed and murdered for the money. Maybe they were in the wrong place at the wrong time. As we all know, Anet loves to pull on our heartstrings, so any of these seem viable to me. 2. One stormy night, new commander's parents left them with a friend of their adoptive race, promised they'd be back soon and then never return. The trope of just going to get a pack of cigarettes and then never coming back can comically apply here. 3. New commander was kidnapped by slavers, bandits, inquest, or other bad guys, and when members of their adoptive race set them and a bunch of other innocents free, they realized they don't know where the new commander came from or how to get them home. Number 4. New commander was found abandoned as a child. No sign of the parents. No idea how they got there. Maybe their ship sank and the new commander was washed ashore. Maybe new commander got lost in the mists and ended up in the continental Tyria in a religious ceremony gone wrong. Replace mists with old malfunctioning Asura gate or some other kind of magic gone wrong. New commander fell in a hole on the other side of the world and went all the way to the opposite side. Because that's how planets work, right? Right? Oh, come on, don't say you didn't think that you could dig a tunnel to the other side of the world when you were a kid. The level 30 story step should be able to pretty much be reused wholesale from the adoptive race's story. So that covers the parts of the beginning story unique to the new race. Everything after that is common to all races, other than a handful of dialogue sprinkled sporadically throughout 8 years of story acknowledging the race the player chose. But what about the story after the new race is added? How does new commander's story conclude? After the new playable race is patched in, presumably with an expansion, there could be a part of the story that takes place in their racial city. This opens up that city specifically to anyone who owns the new playable race, making it easy to put it behind said expansion. As part of the story, the commander needs to get in good with a particular family in the city, whether it be to gain entrance to the city, to speak with an important leader, go through a ritual, get an important item, whatever. Every commander, new and old, has had to go through similar trials to prove themselves worthy to some group or other. At the end, old commanders are congratulated and welcomed into the fold. New commander, however, learns that this isn't just an ordinary trial. This is their family, or an extension of their family, and they are told the truth of what happened leading up to their arrival in mainland Tyria while being tearfully welcomed home. Think of the emotion. Think of the tears. Oh, it'll be so good. This, I think, puts a nice cap on new commander's story while maintaining a parallel story for old commanders. And who doesn't love a nice family reunion? Oh, This solution provides for a racial city, a tutorial and story steps, starting from the beginning of the story, all of which reuse as much of the old content as possible, as well as creating an interesting story for the commander of the new playable race. There's no need to create a new low-level zones, and no need to create a brand new mentor character from Destiny's Edge. ANET can just reuse Air, Zoja, Kaith, or Logan, all of whom are used to working with folks from other races. No solution is ever truly perfect, but remember the goals that we set up in the beginning of this video. Old content over new content, immersion, and allowing the new commander to be part of the story from the beginning of the game. Everything we've talked about doesn't break my sense of immersion like some of the other solutions we talked about at the beginning of the video. And compared to reworking the entire game, this feels logical. It feels relatively easy in comparison, and it gives people what they want. The goal of all this isn't to say that this is the only way to implement a new playable race, because it surely isn't. And it isn't to say that ANET is definitely going to give us a playable race, because they might not. But my hope with all of this is that maybe, just maybe, this might get back to someone at ANET and perhaps spark someone's creative juices, which could make a new playable race a little more feasible. I also want to get people excited about this, because the more excitement something can generate, the more energy and attention it gets. And if anyone can generate excitement and attention, it's content creators. So this is where you all come in. I appeal to each and every one of you watching this video to give it a like and to share it with anyone you can think to share it with. Spread it around. The more it's shared, the more likely it is to be seen by someone who can actually put it to good use. If you have any thoughts or ideas about how to make a new playable race work for Guild Wars 2, then please leave a comment down below and share your ideas. Because who knows, maybe one day we'll get ourselves heard and get to make pretty bird people. Okay, I'm Team Tengu, but I also really like Largos. Thank you so much to Persona for not only being super creative, but for allowing me to give a voice to your idea. I love it, and here's hoping we get it heard. If you like this video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, and if you want to see more videos like this, please consider hitting the subscribe button and ringing the bell so you're kept up to date with all of my Guild Wars 2 content. Thanks for watching, everyone. Have a great rest of your day, and I will see you all next time. Bye!